Attention all hunters. Maximize your hunting success with Black Widow Deer Lures, America's original real deer urine attractants. Hand collected and fresh, their premium lures bring the big bucks in close. Trust Black Widow for an authentic scent and unmatched results. Your trophy hunt starts here. Welcome to Joshua 2415 Outdoors, proudly in partnership with Christian Bow Hunters of America.
Good morning.
Hey, look, I hit the record button with you knowing this time.
And I got to see you do it. It was a pleasant change of pace, I tell you.
Welcome back, everybody. Here we are yet again with another episode. Excited as usual to get started. As we get I got a question for you that I've been meaning to ask.
Ask away.
So you've been, let's say your hunting career, you've been hunting for many years, right?
About that long, yeah.
So I've wondered, what was it like hunting dinosaurs? Was that
It was
crazy?
a little more exciting because, here in Southern Illinois, we don't have any other predators.
Is that crazy
So
that long ago?
when we were able to get out there and you had to worry about the Tyrannosaurus Rexes weren't that big a deal because you could hear them coming. But the Velociraptors, they were like coyotes on steroids, and that was a little troublesome.
No. You're ruining it. You're not supposed to play along. It was supposed to be a dig at your age yet again.
I'm not worried about my age. And I tell you the reason that I'm not worried about my age, because of all the experiences that I have had the joy and honor of having and experiencing up to this point. As we sit in my hunting room,
change of pace from the porch.
But we're sitting in my hunting room, and as I look around my hunting room, it's just nothing but memories. And it's like when I sit in my living room, it's the whole time. It's just memories flooding back of all of these experiences that happened. And most of them, it was just me and God there. There was no one else to share that experience with for almost everything that I've ever been able to kill. And to be able to look at these things and those memories come flooding back, and then to be able to share stories with you and to other people and with my grandkids of all of these different hunts and the things that transpired to make this stuff possible. I would not want to go back to being a young man and trade these experiences for anything.
Well, not to mention the wisdom that you've gathered along the way, and you've helped me a lot just this year in figuring out where is likely going to be the best spot for me to start early season, which is coming up for me this Saturday.
Right.
And I am
We're
excited about
just 2 days away, 2 mornings away.
Yep. I cannot wait. I'm planning on, when I go, just to take does. I'm going to take a doe. That's going to be my starter. I'm going to wait and let the bucks, probably, I don't think I'll take a buck until later in the season.
Well, what are you going to do if the buck shows up?
Let him go. It depends. Well, because my thought process is, I don't know that area yet very well. I don't know what's in there. I don't know what bucks are coming and going. I want to allow the opportunity to see what's in there before I just start trigger happy, because you only get so many tags.
Well, you only get 1 buck in Kentucky.
You get 1 buck.
Now, I think there is a way that you can get a bonus buck tag inland between the lakes. I'm not sure the process of that, but I think you can do that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, you have to go through a process just to get a spot in land between the lakes. I can't remember now. I'd have to look it up again, but it's not a drawing. It's like I don't know, you got to go through a bunch of stuff just to get to that point to where you can go to Land Between Legs, if I understand that correctly. I think it's sectioned out or something like that. Anyways, yeah, I'm more than excited to get started Saturday. Okay, I guess let me rethink that. Or if a buck shows up, it depends. It would be my first archery buck. So
Right.
So if the opportunity presents itself, I may be inclined to go ahead and take a shot.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you've not taken a deer with a bow yet.
Nope.
And if the first legal deer that walks in on you, of course, you got to do what you got to do. The first deer that walks in on you, you ought to shoot.
I probably will. Let's be honest.
And then, the great thing about having the multiple doe tags, you can still hunt throughout the rest of the entire season. Yes. You just are limited to, you have to watch the show with the bucks from that point on. But you also enjoy photography and all of this other stuff. So when the bucks come in, during the rut and stuff, you could be recording this stuff footage. And getting the enjoyment of that.
That's true.
That's one thing that I always really wanted to do, was if I filled my buck tags early, to then go ahead and hunt through the rut
and kind of
with a camera. I never had the finances to be able to buy a good quality, camera. And when I was really wanting to do that, it was before digital cameras were, around. But I've always been interested in photography, and you see so many amazing things in the woods that if you could capture those things with good quality pictures, not only would you have that then, but there's magazines and stuff that are interested in that stuff. And probably now, not just magazines, but all these magazines have their digital websites and stuff that they all are wanting good quality footage of. And there's so many things that happen out in the wild that people have no idea, that don't spend time out in the woods. They just have no idea the things that go on during
like squirrels falling out of trees.
Squirrel falling out of the tree. It was, I don't even remember how many years ago it was. It was a long time ago. I was sitting up here on the property that I did oversee by the school, and sitting in a real deep ravine, and there was a storm coming in, and I knew I couldn't stay much longer because it was really getting bad back to the west, and I knew, it was so much lightning and stuff was going on back to the west. It was just, a fool would stay in the stand. Yeah. But I wanted to stay as long as I possibly could. And now, I did not see any deer that afternoon, but I will never in my life forget the show that I got to see that day. This squirrel come hauling it. Great big old fox squirrel, hauling it on the ground as hard as it could go. And I've never seen a squirrel. I've seen a lot of squirrels running fast, but this squirrel was panicked and running. And a male and female red-tailed hawk was just off the ground behind him. The male was first, the female was behind him, and they were going under like logs and stuff that had fallen that was at an angle. It was like a bombing run. It was crazy looking. These hawks coming through that woods just off the ground trying to catch that squirrel. And bless his heart, the squirrel got away. But it was a show I wished had been captured.
That would be cool.
There were so many things.
That'd be neat to see.
I shot a squirrel out of a tree one time, and a red-tailed hawk caught it before it hit the ground. And I saw that hawk sitting in a tree before I shot that squirrel. But it just blew my mind that as soon as that squirrel fell out of that tree, that hawk caught that squirrel before it hit the ground.
It's like, thanks,
and
buddy.
Just left with it. And I was like, I didn't want to lose a squirrel, but I saw something that maybe no one else has ever seen.
Gosh, that's crazy. It's like, thanks, buddy, and took off. He got an easy meal that day.
You get to witness so many things out there when you're in the woods or in the field, wherever you're at. If you're out there and you're just sitting there quietly waiting on deer, you get to witness everything that happens out there in nature that God had designed that people don't even dream about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got a front row seat.
There's so much to experience. And it's always a good time being in the outdoors. Even if you're hunting and you're not seeing much of anything, or you don't see any deer come in that day, or whatever you're hunting, really. It's still nice to be out there. And
Well, it always brings me peace. I've always got,
as we mentioned before, it's therapeutic.
yeah, I've always either got my Bible or my phone there with me. And most of my sermons, I think the best sermons come when I'm out in the woods. And so I'm making notes and I'm reading and studying and just seeing things that bring me to a part of Scripture. So many different things. You look at, one of my favorite things is you're out there and you're looking at all these different trees, okay?
Yeah.
And you're looking at all of the different structures to their bark. So you've got oak trees that have a real tight, hard bark, and that's the red oak. And then you've got the white oak trees that have got a softer bark, and it's a different color. It's a light gray. And then you've got a pignut hickory tree that the bark is really tight. And then you've got a scaly bark hickory tree, and it's got big slabs of bark that peel off in big pieces. You got all of these different things and all of these different trees, but they're all still trees.
And do about the same thing.
They do about the same thing. They're all different, but they're all the same. And when I look at that, I see creation of humans. There's so much hatred and controversy over all of the different colors of people and the ethnicity of people and all of these things. But they're all just people.
Yep.
They're all the same. It doesn't matter if they look different. They're all the same. They're all built in God's image. And you should see the beauty in that. Like when I look at those trees, I see the beauty in each one of those trees. I mean, there's not a tree that I don't like.
Yeah.
I think they're all beautiful. And at this stage in my life, and thankfully for a long time, I have not been prejudiced. I grew up prejudiced, extremely prejudiced. But thankfully, God showed me the difference when I was 18 years old. I was working at Coca-Cola, and I'm just going to get off on this for just a second. I just need to tell this little story.
We're here for it.
All right. I got to work that morning, and I hired on at Coca-Cola for $4.10 an hour. A fortune, I started out there as just a janitor, and my thought process was, just get a job, because I just got out of high school. I needed to get a job. I knew I wasn't going to go to college or anything like that. I wasn't smart enough to go do something like that. I was absolutely I didn't apply myself in any of my high school years, and it took summer school every year because of it, other than my senior year. So I got on there as a janitor, and I got to work one morning, and they told me I was going to go on a route with one of the drivers. And like I say, I've been raised my entire life prejudiced, extremely prejudiced. And they tell me I'm going on a route with a guy named Mario. And so I go to find Mario. Well, Mario ended up being a black guy. And in my mind, I was immediately like, boy, ain't this just fantastic. But I got in that truck. I had no choice but get in that truck. It was part of the job. And before that day was over, I realized that everything that I had been told about other races wasn't right. Mario had a wife. He had kids that he worried about. He had car payments he was worried about. Had house payment he was worried about. All of these things that I was dealing with myself, everything Mario was also dealing with. And he was just a man that loved his family, trying to make a living for them. And I was the same way. And it absolutely just flipped a switch in my head to not look at the skin color, not look at where they come from or how they were raised, to look at the individual person and let the individual person's character dictate what I thought of them.
Yeah.
And it changed everything for me. And when we do take that opportunity to look at, that's just like going back to the trees now. Before, if I had not seen this way, maybe one tree is better than another tree. Maybe it all wouldn't even have looked the same to me. But now I just see people, man.
Yeah. It's a lot like you can see the beauty in each of those trees as an individual tree.
Yes.
Is the same way you can look at people and the beauty of just being a person. And that's a really good story. That's what always my thought process has been. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I have my opinions, obviously. I have my beliefs and my Christian values. But if someone does not believe in those same things or does not share my opinions, that does not make me not like them or I may not agree with their ideas or like their ideas, but as a person, they're still a person. They're still dealing with the same things that I'm dealing with.
Correct.
The same struggles that I may be dealing with, whether if it's another man, trying to provide for his family and do what's right by them, his ideas and opinions and all that. It's not affecting me, so I don't have the right to take that out on anybody or view them as less of a person because of it, or not be friends with them. That's
Well, there's going to be people that you don't mesh with in life.
Yeah.
There just is.
Yeah.
But I mean, my main point is I was making, up to that point, I was making decisions off of the outside of a book.
What you have been told throughout your life instead of seeing it as it is for yourself.
Of investing yourself in a little bit of time, and take a moment to talk to somebody before you decide that you're going to just diss them.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Of where they come from or who they are or what color they are. And some of the most, now that I've had the opportunity.
Or even what they look like.
Even what they look like. I can remember in high school, I run around with some cruel guys and I was cruel. And even though I was a little on the heavy side back then, I would get with those guys and we would make fun of overweight people. We'd make fun of people that look different. And I was so ashamed of that after I got grown and realized how wrong that was, that I made it a point to go find those people as adults and apologize to them, for what I will let myself be a part of back in that time. Because none of us have got the right to make someone else feel bad about themselves. None of us do. Everybody's got their own struggles, and what we need to focus on doing is coming along beside people and building people up and helping people get where they want to be instead of trying to drag people back to a place that they were at. I want to help people. We talked about the ladder last time and the steps getting up. And I want to help people go up the rungs of those ladders. I don't want to be the one that is the dead weight pulling somebody back, trying to keep them from getting up the rungs of a ladder in life.
Or shoving that ladder right on over.
Right. Or shoving it over. Somebody get almost to the top and shove it off the roof. I don't want to be that. I want to be someone to help and encourage and lift up, because that is what Jesus taught. Jesus taught about love. He taught about relationships. And that, if we're going to follow Jesus, then that is what we're going to do. We're going to encourage, we're going to build up, and we're going to help people move forward. If they're down, we're going to lend a hand. When there's a message that I preached a few times, and that message came to me when I was shed hunting. We may have even touched on this in a podcast before. I don't know. But when I was shed hunting that day, and I saw this antler, and when I was walking up to that antler, it just come to me. It's just laying there waiting to be picked up.
Yes, we did.
Okay. Well, how many times?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
How many times is someone just waiting for someone to stick a hand out and lift them up?
Mm-hmm. And you don't know until you give them a chance.
You don't know until you try.
You give them a chance to tell their story or just lend an ear and listen to what they have to say.
It's what we're called to do. We are called to be there to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And we are accountable. There's a book I've got somewhere called Called and Accountable. We are called to do something, and we're accountable to do that as Christian men and Christian women, to do what he has called us to do. This is, salvation is free. Easiest thing you can ever get, hardest thing to ever have. Because once you've got it, you're accountable for that. He did not give us the opportunity to have salvation for us to just sit on it.
Yeah.
And, okay, well, we're safe, so we don't have to do anything with it. We are to take that and we are to spread that gospel. And, well, we've been able to do it through errors and through outdoors. Somebody else may do it through whatever, golf or whatever. Find what you're good at and a way that you can communicate, and let God show you how to use a Christian message in the middle of it.
And that, just what you said there is a perfect lead-in or segue, if you will, to what I wanted to talk about also in this podcast. You said finding what you're good at, or you could say pursuing your passion.
Yes.
And that's an idea that I had that I wanted us to start doing in future videos is start a video series that's going to be called Passion for the Pursuit.
Amen.
And that has double meaning.
Yes, it does.
That is, whatever your passion is. I mean, for us, it's the outdoors, and it's hunting and fishing and all that good stuff. So that's our passion. We pursue that passion. But it also is the pursuit of the kingdom of Christ, pursuing to be more like Jesus, pursuing Jesus and pursuing godly things. That is what that is meant to mean. And I'm looking forward to kind of representing that in our hunting videos.
I'm looking forward to it too. I'm really glad that you come up with that idea. When you pitched it to me the other night, I was extremely excited, as I am with all your ideas. I think all the ideas that you come up with, I've said before so many times, there is no possible way that we could be reaching the amount of people that we're reaching now if it had not been for you coming to Lowe's and you becoming just such a close friend. I mean, I just consider you a son. And the gifts that God has given you that has allowed this to grow in this direction. I would have never been able to have done the things that you have done with video, with audio, all of these different platforms and the different podcast platforms that we're on. And it's amazing to me. But see, this is the gift that God gave you. He gave you many gifts, but he also gave you this as a gift. And you may not have ever realized it up until recently, but God gave you this knowledge of how to do these things for such a time as this.
All right. I agree. It was definitely a learning process. It's not something I'd ever done before.
But you could comprehend it.
But I figured it out and still figuring it out, trying to figure out how to put these things together, and here we are. The ministry of Joshua 24:15 outdoors can not only doesn't just have to stay in this area local,
right? It
can span across the country and into the world. I've seen we've got viewers in different parts of the world, even. And that's one thing that I'm excited about and happy to help with is getting the message of this podcast and this ministry out so everyone can hear. And I hope that we continue to bring content that helps, content that draws people closer in a relationship with Jesus, and content that not only is and a spiritual aspect of it, but also brings a little bit of entertainment, and we get to share our hunts and our memories with people, and a lot of that people can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm very excited. Very excited. I really thought the only way that this, in my feeble mind, the only way that this ministry was going to go anywhere is if me and my wife, got in the vehicle and went to different places. Or like when I got to take this to Mexico last year and do the archery message in Mexico, I thought that was, in my mind, the only way that we were going to get out of Southern Illinois and Western Kentucky. But through this and through the things that you have been able to figure out, it could go anywhere in the world.
And that's it too, though, that for that time, and like you said, such a time as this, for that time, that was the way to do
it.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of courage and boldness to get out there and just go like that, especially to another country that you're not familiar with for the first time.
Let me tell you a story. I just thought of this story, and I know I'm full of stories, but
no, that's fine. We can call it this title of this episode is going to be Story Time with Illinois Comer.
Me and Pam, my wife Pam, we took blankets and coats to the border of Mexico. It's been several years back now, and we drove to McAllen, Texas. I believe it was McAllen. It may have been, it was a border town. I don't remember which border town it was, but we drove down there, and the pastor and his family that we work with was going to come and meet us. They were going to come across into the United States for us to give them the blankets, the coats, and we had medical equipment too. We had walkers and crutches and all of these things that we had collected. But on that Wednesday that we were there waiting, it was going to be the next day before we met them. On that Wednesday, I told her, I said, I really feel like God's telling me that we need to go somewhere to a church that I'm supposed to speak tonight. And we don't know where we're at. We're over 1,000 miles from home. And she got on Facebook and she asked all of our friends to be praying for us to find the place that we were supposed to go to. And it was no time. Somebody told us the name of a church down there that we needed to go to. And I think the person that commented on that was from Minnesota or someplace. And so we went to this church and got there. There was one car in the parking lot. Now, this is mid-afternoon. And I knocked on the door. It was a Spanish church, straight up Spanish speaking church. I don't speak Spanish. My wife don't speak Spanish, but this is where God directed us to go. So I knocked on the door, and finally this real small Mexican man came to the door, and I introduced myself to him. I told him, I said, I don't speak Spanish. And I said, do you speak English? And he just went a little bit, and held his fingers up real close together, a little bit. And I told him where I was from, what I was there to do, to deliver stuff for the kids in Mexico, and that God was telling me that I was supposed to speak at a church that night. And he said, you come back at whatever time, 6:30. He said, you come back at that time, and if God has told you to speak at my church, I will give you the pulpit. And we got back, and there's people everywhere in that church. No one was speaking English.
Wait, so what was he, the pastor of this church?
He was the pastor of the church.
No way. So you were just kind of coincidentally directed toward this?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, coincidence.
When God moves.
Yes.
He moves.
So we were sitting in there, and he was the only one that spoke a little bit of English. And then all of a sudden, this lady was talking to some other people in the church, and she kept looking at us. We're the only white people in there. It's just Mexican people, Spanish people, whatever you want to call it. I don't mean anything derogatory. I love the Mexican people. But the lady looked back at us, and she finally walked back there and in perfect English asked what we were doing there. And I told her, I said, we're on mission trip. God told me I was supposed to speak at a church, and this is the church that he led us to. And I said, the pastor told me, and I forgot to say that part. The pastor told me that I needed an interpreter. If I had an interpreter, I could speak. And she's in perfect English talking to me. And I said, and it looks to me like the pastor told me I had to find an interpreter, and looks to me like I just found the interpreter. And she said, I'll do it. She was a nurse, and she spoke perfect English. She was a Spanish lady. And I got up and I gave the message. I gave the story, and I gave the story about of our son and all the trouble that we went through with him, and that God can deliver out of all of this, and all the things that our family had went through. And when it was over with, I mean, Pam was not feeling good. When I got done talking, we left. We left before, because the Spanish service goes on forever and ever and ever, hours and hours. So I had given this lady my phone number. And the next morning, we were at a grocery store getting supplies. And my phone rang. And this lady, it was the nurse from that church. And she said, you not speaking Spanish, you could not have realized what was happening last night. Our church, they had a long prayer time before I got to get up. And that long prayer time, the church was praying for the sons of that church that were in drugs, in crime, and all of this stuff. And then I got up and gave a message about
going through
it and coming out the other side of it. And she said, the words that you spoke were exactly what this church needed to hear last night. She said people were in tears because they were hearing exactly what they needed to hear. And it was not you. It was what God did through you. That's what I want to be a part of.
Yeah. It's you answered the call.
Just done what I was told.
Yeah.
That's it. Just done what I was told. If we all just do what God tells us to do. Now, I had lots of questions. Why this church? Why a church that nobody's going to speak English?
Yeah.
But you just go, and he makes a way.
He makes a way. That's exactly what I was going to say. He makes a way. A thought came to mind as soon as you said that, when you talk about your son and the rough time you had going through that. And what I've gone through this year in my life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go through hell to get to where you're supposed to be.
That's true.
Even though it sucks and it hurts.
Yes.
Sometimes, and it's hard to see in the moment, sometimes it might be necessary. It's could be used to shape you or mold you who you are or who you're supposed to be.
It will either shape you. There's a choice with anything else. There's a choice.
Absolutely.
The hard times that you go through will either shape you into the person that God wants you to be, or you will let your own.
You have a choice to reject that.
That's right.
You have a choice to reject that and go somewhere you're not supposed to be. But and I've learned that when you're going through extremely difficult times in your life, it could be very hard to do what you're supposed to do and think like you're supposed to think and want to have that relationship with Jesus, when you just feel like maybe he's not there. It's only when you come to your senses and realize he's always there.
That's exactly
And
right.
if you don't hear him, it's because you're not listening.
That's right. And we close ourselves off a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Especially in those hard times.
It's easy to do, just like you would with family. If someone in your family hurts your feelings, you're going to be a little more distance from them at that point. You're going to shut them down a little bit, or want to close off and not talk to them as much.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that we do with our heavenly family, our Father, and Jesus, and the Holy Spirit even. It's easy to shut them out and not focus on building that relationship anymore. But deep down that's not the right thing to do. That doesn't get you anywhere, and it just puts you further in a hole that you don't want to be in, and that's hard to climb out of once you get
It is.
So deep in it.
But if you will allow him to lead you through these times, and you will allow him to build you through these times, you become something more useful for him. You become, a useful vessel.
Absolutely.
Like you put a person making a pot on a wheel that doesn't know what they're doing, and they may make just a useless vessel. But then you take a potter and you put a potter there, and they're making a vessel that can be used for its purpose.
They know what they're doing.
And God knows what he's doing.
We've done a podcast on that one too.
That's right. That's right. He just will build you into what he needs you to be for you to answer your call.
I'm the clay and he is the potter.
Yep.
He knows what he's doing. He's got the hands that are meant to mold the clay.
I just looking over your shoulder right now, and I'm looking at the archery wall here, and looking at feathers that are up there for fletching. And there's right wing feathers and there's left wing feathers up there. All right, I've got a right wing jig sitting there. If I take the left wing feathers and put left wing feathers on an arrow with a right wing jig, they're not going to fly for the purpose, and they're not going to fly. They'll fly for a purpose, but they won't fly correctly.
They won't fly their intended purpose.
They won't fly right. They won't fly as they are intended to do, because you're taking it's a right component if you have a left wing jig. But if you take the wrong feathers and you put on with the wrong jig, it's not going to do what it's supposed to. We can muddle through life all we want, but unless we let God fletch our life's arrow for it to fly as intended, it's never going to hit the point that it's supposed to.
Absolutely. That arrow is going to be off course.
That's right.
You're not going to hit the target that he intended you to. Wow, that's profound.
I like it.
I like that. I also like story time with Comer.
Yeah.
Illinois Comer.
Got a lot of stories.
Yeah, I like him though. It's good. I think that's a very profound story as well. Anytime you hear stories like that, where things just line up, you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know when it's going to happen, what's going to happen. It just happens. It comes together. God makes a way for those things to come together, and all you have to do is trust. Trust that he's going to deliver on what he's calling you to. 10 times out of 10, he will.
That's right.
He will do that, so long as you allow him to.
Amen.
And somehow that gets me fired up for deer season.
Everything gets you fired up for deer season.
I'm so thrilled. It's been a long time since I've been hunting, and I lost what that meant to me. What it means to be in the outdoors. Again, whether or not I see anything, whether or not I'm out fishing and I don't catch anything, the therapy that it is for me is, I can't put it into words. What it does for me to be out there in God's country.
That's right.
Experiencing God's country as it was meant to be experienced, whether or not it's hunting or just being or scouting or whatever. It's such a blessing to be out there, and it
makes you a better person.
It's a good reminder of just all the intricacies of life beyond your house.
Yeah.
Life beyond being confined in a house and going out and seeing the woods. I'm looking out your window here. I can see the woods. It's beautiful. You see all the life that's out there. And there's so much life. And as we already talked about, there's so much out there that to be experienced in the great outdoors.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that is Joshua 24:15. Outdoors. Man, I love the stories. I love doing these podcasts with you.
I do too. I think it's inspired by God. I really do.
I do as well. For such a time as this. I think that'll about wrap it up right
Probably
there.
ought to. Probably ought to. We're running close to 40 minutes right now.
But it's
and I could go on all day, but we'll save it for another
worth
one.
It. We'll have story time with Illinois Comer Part 2.
We're going to, and I had forgot, I was supposed to got with a guy to be here this morning, and I just realized it. It was the guy that I had the pleasure of leading to the Lord.
Bread man.
Yeah.
Was that this week?
It was supposed to have been this week, and I forgot all about it.
A little unorganized.
Right now. But we will get him on before long. He's got an amazing testimony. It is unreal, his testimony. But he wants to come on and share it.
And I'm happy to have him on here. I can't wait to hear it. But anyways, with that said, we got that lined up, and we've got more coming. We've got Jeremy Jarrett that we've been meaning to interview for a long time now.
We're working on his timeline now. We're off on his timeline. When he is available, he is very busy with the coaching and with the going to shoots every weekend. So when he gets to the point that he has time, he's going to let us know. We're going to do it. And then we've got to get with Merle
Fredericks, Christian Bow Hunters of America, and Reverend, the guy that started Christian Bow Hunters of America.
Dave Roos.
Wow. Drew a blank.
Yeah, Reverend Dave Roos.
So we got a lot coming up, and looking forward to bringing you those. I think those are going to be very special.
Other than that, you just got to hear us talking back and forth.
Which, ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, I
enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, you can still subscribe and like it and all that good stuff. And as usual, feel free to check out all the affiliate links that will be in the description. Really, it benefits you. So,
yeah.
So enjoy. And with that, God bless you.
God bless.
Have a great rest of your week.